Welcome to Whisper Wire, where silence turns into legacy. Kevin was the invisible son. The background. While his younger brother was celebrated for mediocrity, Kevin earned a degree, built a startup, and got ignored until one party changed everything. No banners from his parents, so he raised one over the Chicago skyline, and when the world saw him, his family tried to rewrite the story. But Kevin had receipts, and what came next, no one saw coming. My name's Kevin. I'm 22 now, but the story I'm about to tell you started when I was 20, right in the final stretch of college, the period where every late night, every missed party, every quiet moment in the library was supposed to finally pay off. I kept my head down for years, grinding through my engineering degree while my family threw everything. I mean, everything. Behind my younger brother, Tyler. He was the golden child, captain of his high school football team. Popular, always getting attention for something. And don't get me wrong, he wasn't a bad kid, just someone who learned early on that the spotlight would always follow him, no matter how dim mine got. I never made a fuss about it. When my parents framed Tyler's C+ science project and gave it a whole corner of the living room wall, I just nodded and kept walking. When he got a used car at 16 and I had to Uber to my summer job, I told myself, it's just money. You'll earn your own one day. And when he brought home middling grades and still got taken out for steak dinners while I quietly paid my own tuition through scholarships and part-time gigs, I figured they just showed love differently. But the real shift, the fracture that didn't heal, came during Tyler's high school graduation. I had just finished finals that week, completely drained, but proud. I'd been nominated for a national engineering award and had lined up a job interview with a top firm in Chicago. Still, I rearranged everything to be home that weekend because Mom kept texting about family time and being there for your brother. So, I packed a bag, booked a train, and came home. When I walked through the door that Friday evening, the house was spotless. Streamers, a banner that read, "Congrats, Tyler." Catering trays stacked on the kitchen island. There were 2 giant coolers in the backyard, one filled with soda, and the other with bottles of beer that everyone pretended were just for the adults. Tables and chairs rented, a giant Bluetooth speaker prepped with Tyler's favorite songs. They went all out, except there wasn't a single photo of me on the wall. I didn't say anything at first, just figured maybe they wanted it to be his day, and I didn't want to make it about me. But later that night, as I helped Mom carry some desserts into the garage fridge, I asked, "Hey, should I invite some of my friends over too? Some of them live nearby and I haven't seen them in a while." She didn't even look at me. "Kevin, no. This is Tyler's night. We don't want you stealing his moment." I remember just standing there frozen, holding a tray of cupcakes like it had suddenly become molten in my hands. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't asked for anything. Hadn't even brought up the fact that I was graduating college in just a few weeks. The first in our immediate family to even finish a 4-year degree. I wasn't asking for speeches or banners just to be seen. But something cracked inside me then. I set the tray down gently, forced a smile, and said, "Then don't expect an invite to mine." She paused, finally looked at me, and laughed like I just said something ridiculous. "Kevin, don't be dramatic." But I wasn't. I meant it. The party went on without a hitch. Everyone laughed, danced, cheered when Tyler made his little thanks everyone speech in the backyard. Dad grilled burgers. Uncle Rich gave Tyler a fat envelope and said something about how proud he was. And I stayed mostly invisible, sipping soda on the porch, watching the lights flicker across the lawn like I was a guest in my own family. After that weekend, I stopped responding to the family group chat. I didn't go home after finals ended. I stayed with my roommate Ben in the city, took on extra hours at the startup where I was interning, and quietly planned something no one would see coming. Graduation for my university was scheduled for mid-June, but I didn't walk across any stage. I declined the ceremony altogether. Instead, I pulled together some savings, reached out to a couple of friends, old friends who hadn't forgotten me, and started organizing something better, something that wouldn't need a banner to scream my name because it would already be on everyone's lips. It started with a call to my cousin Vanessa. She was a freelance event planner in LA, and though we hadn't talked in a while, she picked up right away and said, "Tell me you're finally letting me throw you something big." I told her I wanted something elegant, something media-worthy. Not for ego, but because if my family wasn't going to acknowledge me, I wanted to make damn sure the rest of the world would. Vanessa didn't even hesitate. "I've got just the place." We ended up booking a rooftop venue in downtown Chicago with a view of the lake, live jazz band, cocktail bar, local chefs doing tasting menus, and yes, a huge custom banner that read, "Congratulations, Kevin Thomas, class of 2023. It was subtle, tasteful, and absolutely impossible to ignore. Invites went out digitally to friends, mentors, co-workers. I didn't include a single family member. Not my mom, not my dad, not even Tyler, but I knew word would spread. I made sure it would. A week before the event, I gave Vanessa the green light to invite a handful of local media contacts she'd worked with before. Lifestyle bloggers, a journalist from the Tribune, even a couple of influencers who loved covering young success stories. The angle? First-G college grad celebrates with style after building a six-figure app during school, which was true, by the way. I'd sold a small prototype app the previous year, and it had made me just enough to make this party possible. The night of the event was surreal. People I hadn't seen in years showed up in suits and dresses, hugging me like I was royalty. My old programming professor gave a toast that nearly made me cry, and just when the sun dipped behind the skyline, Vanessa pulled me aside and said, "You're not going to believe who just showed up." I turned, and there he was, my cousin Ben standing under the banner with a drink in hand, grinning like a fool. "Hope you don't mind," he said, holding up his phone. "Just posted a pic, tagged you and everything. Figured it's about time the family saw what they missed." I didn't stop him. What I didn't expect was for the post to go viral. Not just among friends, but it got picked up. One of the media folks live-streamed part of the evening, and it somehow made its way into a weekend segment on local news. Chicago graduate throws epic rooftop bash after family snub. I didn't even see it air, but someone else did. At 6:42 p.m. the next day, I got a message from an unknown number. "Kevin, we saw the news. Your mom, she fainted. Call us, please." I didn't reply, but that was nothing compared to what came next. 2 hours later, my phone started vibrating nonstop. First, it was Tyler, then Dad, then again, then a different number I didn't recognize. Probably a relative, or maybe someone borrowing Mom's phone. I watched each call come and go, my screen lighting up like a warning beacon in the dark. Then came the texts. "Tyler, what's wrong with you, man? Why didn't you invite us? We had no idea you even graduated. Dad, you went behind our backs, made us look like fools on the news. This is not how family handles things." Unknown number. Your mother collapsed crying. She's inconsolable. Please talk to her. I turned off the phone and slid it under my pillow. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I wanted to enjoy the afterglow a little longer. Not out of spite, but because for the first time in a long time I felt seen. Not as a backup. Not as a background character in the Tyler show, but as someone who built something from nothing and made people notice. But even as I lay there staring at the ceiling, that little knot of guilt began to twist in my gut. Not because I regretted anything, but because even after everything, some part of me still wished it hadn't had to come to this. I never wanted to be the guy who made headlines for family drama. I just wanted my own people to say, "We're proud of you." That night, I got a knock on my apartment door. It was Ben holding 2 coffees. "I figured you weren't going to sleep," he said, handing one over. "They called me too. Your dad's acting like you committed treason." I laughed softly and shook my head. I gave them what they wanted. Space. They didn't want me stealing the moment. Remember? Ben sat down, his eyes sharp in that way only a cousin can look at you. "Kev, you didn't just steal the moment. You redefined it. That party. That was a freaking movie, and everyone knows what they did now." The next morning, I turned my phone back on. The unread message count had ballooned past 50. There were emails now, too. Long ones, some rambling, some apologetic, but one stood out. A voice memo from Mom. I didn't want to listen. I told myself not to, but curiosity always wins. I hit play. Her voice was shaky, soft, almost unrecognizable. Kevin, I saw the photos, the video, the banner, everything. I didn't even know you liked jazz. I didn't know a lot of things, apparently. I'm sorry I don't know what we did wrong, or maybe I do and I just never let myself see it, but please just call me. Just let me explain. I sat there staring at nothing, not angry, not satisfied, just numb. Because what do you say to that? When the people who are supposed to lift you up have spent years pretending you're invisible, and then finally notice you, not because they saw your effort, but because the rest of the world did. I didn't respond, but word kept spreading. The video of Vanessa's toast, where she talked about how I worked 2 jobs through college, about the app one built in our dorm, about how I helped tutor her kid in algebra over Zoom, made it to Twitter. A local college prep program even reached out to ask if I'd speak to their students. Suddenly, people were seeing me for more than the kid who used to do all the chores, while Tyler got congratulated for mowing half the lawn. I moved into my new job a week later. A sleek office in the Loop with floor-to-ceiling windows and a team of people who didn't care what my family thought of me. They just wanted to know how I solved a major interface bug in a prototype most undergrads wouldn't even attempt. But my family wasn't done yet. One morning, about 3 weeks later, I got a call from Aunt Denise. She was never the meddling type, which is why I picked up. "Hey, sweetheart," she said cautiously. "I've been meaning to ask. Did you know your parents tried to throw you a surprise party?" I blinked. "What?" She sighed. "Yeah. Right after the news piece aired, they scrambled. Booked some banquet hall. Tried to rush order a banner and everything. Said it was a makeup celebration, but they didn't invite me until the last minute. And I told them it wasn't right. Not after everything. I was stunned. Not by the attempt, but by the desperation of it. A rushed, last-ditch gesture to save face. Not out of genuine pride, but shame. Public shame. They didn't want me to feel special. They wanted the world to believe they'd always cared." Aunt Denise hesitated, then added, "They're spinning it to the rest of the family like they planned that rooftop party with you all along. That you asked to keep it secret. You might want to get ahead of that." That's when I realized this wasn't about family anymore. This was about legacy, about control. They were rewriting the story, trying to act like they were in on it the whole time, trying to bend the narrative back in their favor. And if I let them, they'd succeed the same way they'd always succeeded at making me the afterthought. But I had receipts, emails, texts, that voice memo, photos, messages, timeline screenshots. I hadn't meant to collect them. They just piled up one by one over the years. And now I had the power they never thought I'd hold, and I knew exactly what to do with it. I didn't act right away. I'm not impulsive by nature. Years of walking on eggshells at home had taught me to calculate my moves. Wait for the moment when people were least expecting a response. So instead of reacting, I watched. I scrolled through social media, kept tabs on the comments under my cousin's post, peeked into the family chat thread I hadn't opened in weeks. Sure enough, the rewriting had already begun. Tyler had posted a selfie from my graduation night. Not from the party, obviously, but an old photo of us when we were kids in matching hoodies. Captioned, "So proud of my big bro. He's been killing it from day one. Can't believe we got to celebrate him like that. Best night ever." The comments flooded in. "Aunt Marcy, that party looked amazing. Your parents must be so proud. Grandma, I wish someone had told me. I would have loved to be there. Uncle Joe, Kevin deserved every second of it. You all planned that perfectly." Each comment was like a spark landing on dry grass, and my blood boiled because none of it was true. None of them had known. No one had planned anything for me. They just didn't want to look bad now that the truth was out, that the quiet, ignored son they barely acknowledged had pulled off something bigger than any of them could have imagined. It wasn't just a razor. It was theft. But I didn't confront anyone. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Vanessa. "You still have the video?" I asked her. She laughed. "I have 3 angles, Kevin. What? Can you put together a highlight reel? Something short. Just enough to show who planned it, who was there, and who wasn't." Her voice shifted. "You want to post it, don't you?" "Not yet. Just have it ready." The next day, my dad emailed me. Not a text, not a call. An actual email. like we were co-workers or estranged colleagues. The subject line was, "Let's move forward." I opened it with a strange sense of calm, like I already knew what was inside. "Kevin, I know things have been tense. Your mother is still upset, and I won't pretend to understand all your reasons for excluding us from your celebration. That said, we're willing to put the past behind us. Let's have dinner, just us. No drama. We can talk about your new job. Maybe go over plans for a small family celebration, something intimate, private. Let me know when you're free." Dad. Private? Of course. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted damage control. A quiet dinner they could reference later when people ask questions. A way to smooth over the cracks in their carefully curated image without ever acknowledging they caused them in the first place. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to Vanessa with one line, "Add this to the video." The next call came 2 days later from Grandma. I hesitated, thumb hovering over decline, but picked up. "Kevin," she said, voice frail but sharp as ever. "Honey, I saw that video on Facebook, the one with your party. It was beautiful." "Thanks, Grandma," I said carefully. She hesitated. "But why didn't you invite your family? I mean, your parents looked so confused when I brought it up. Said they helped organize it. That your cousin just did the decorations." I exhaled. "Grandma, did you hear them mention my name once in the weeks leading up to graduation? Did they ever talk about my degree or my app or the interviews I was doing?" Silence. "No," I continued calmly. "They didn't because they didn't care. They told me to my face not to steal Tyler's moment, and when I told them not to expect an invite to mine, they laughed." Another pause. Then her voice cracked. "That's not what your mom said." I could hear the beginnings of confusion, maybe denial, the feeling of a long-standing narrative breaking down. I didn't want to hurt her. She was the only one who'd ever mailed me actual birthday cards with handwritten notes. But I couldn't let the truth keep drowning under their lies. "I'm not trying to start a war," I said. "I just want people to stop pretending." And then, like fate had a sense of irony, I got a message from an unexpected name. Ms. Riley, my old high school counselor. "Hey, Kevin, just wanted to say I saw the graduation party video floating around online. Couldn't be happier for you. You've come so far, and we always knew you had it in you. Funny story, your mom came by the school last week to ask if we'd share the video on the school's alumni page. Said it was a family collaboration. Thought you should know that was the final straw. They weren't just lying to relatives now. They were trying to rewrite the entire record, the public memory of my life, my accomplishments, my moment. I felt like a museum exhibit being curated by the very people who ignored me. So I called Vanessa. Post it. I said, "You sure?" "Yeah, tag me. Make the caption clear." This was for everyone who was never invited because some people didn't want me to have a moment of my own. That night, the reel went live. It opened with footage of me walking into the rooftop venue, shocked by the lights and faces waiting for me. It cut to the jazz band playing under the stars, to the speeches, to Vanessa raising her glass and saying, "He did this all on his own." It included the still shot of the invite, clearly marked private RSVP only, with no parents listed among the guests. And then, as the music softened, it faded to black with my mom's voice from the voicemail. I didn't even know a lot of things, apparently. By morning, the video had over 100,000 views, and my phone was already blowing up. But what happened next? That's when the real fallout began. The morning after the video dropped, I opened my phone to the usual flurry of notifications. Only this time, they weren't just likes and shares. My inbox was flooded. DMS from classmates I hadn't spoken to in years. Messages from coworkers, even strangers who'd seen the video reposted by a career advice influencer with 1 million followers. This is how you bet on yourself. But underneath all the noise, the messages I'd expected were right there, waiting like storm clouds. "Tyler, you really couldn't let this go, could you? What do you want from us?" Blood. "Dad, you humiliated this family. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Was that your goal?" "Mom, please take it down. I know we've made mistakes, but this isn't fair. That last one stayed unread in my inbox for hours. I just couldn't bring myself to open it. Part of me, a small, fragile part one hated, still existed. Wanted to believe she meant it, that she finally saw me. Not because I went viral, but because I had been worthy of attention all along. But I'd learned better. Because they weren't upset about what they'd done. They were upset. People knew. A few days later, I got a formal email from my dad's lawyer. That's right, lawyer. Apparently, he was threatening to file for defamation if I didn't take down the video and cease spreading falsehoods about the family. I stared at the email for a long time, stunned into silence. My own parents were trying to legally silence me, and yet I laughed because they had nothing. The footage was mine. The voice message was real. The photos, the timeline, the emails, all real. My cousin's post from earlier had timestamp proof of who planned the party and who didn't, and the voicemail from my mom pleading with me to talk after she saw the news made it very clear they hadn't been part of anything. I didn't hire a lawyer. I didn't need to. I just replied with one line. Everything in that video is documented truth. Try me. They never responded again, but what followed was worse. The long, silent vacuum of being erased. The family group chat, once chaotic and filled with memes and dinner plans, slowly went quiet. My name wasn't mentioned anymore. Birthdays passed without texts. Holidays came and went without invites. I'd expected the anger. I hadn't expected the emptiness. And yet, I felt freer than ever. I leaned into my new job, building systems that reached more users in a month than my entire college had students. I moved into a condo downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the skyline. I started mentoring other first-gen students, hosted webinars, even gave a TEDx talk about self-worth and silent achievements. But the most satisfying moment that came a year later. I was back in my hometown for a conference and decided on a whim to stop by the local community center, the same one where I used to tutor kids after school for free. It was mostly the same. Chipped paint, faded posters, and a couple of familiar faces. One of the staff members pulled me aside and said, "Hey, your dad came here last month. He brought a box of old trophies and photos. Tried to donate them. Said something about preserving family legacy." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you take them?" The guy grinned. "Nah." We told him, we only accept things with actual community value. I left with a smile. So why'd it hurt? A few months after that, I got a wedding invitation from Tyler. Yes, Tyler. It was embossed, formal, and included a little handwritten note. Let's bury the hatchet. No cameras, just family. I stared at that card for a long time. Thought about all the times I'd been left out, shut down, told to shrink so he could shine. Thought about the party, the voicemail, the lawyer, and then I did the only thing that made sense. I RSP'd. No, but I didn't stop there. I mailed the card back, along with a framed photo from my rooftop party signed to the brother who once said I shouldn't steal your moment. Don't worry, I made my own. I never heard from him again. As for my parents, the last I heard, they were still telling people I'd grown distant after moving to the city, still spinning their version of events, holding on to the idea that their silence wasn't cruelty, but tough love. But the truth had already reached the people who mattered, and it reached one more person too. Grandma. She called me out of the blue one chilly October morning. Her voice was frail but warm. "Kevin," she said, "I watched your TEDx talk twice." "Yeah," I cried both times. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, slow, steady. "I didn't know how badly they hurt you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thanks, Grandma. She wasn't done. I left something for you in my will. It's not much, just something I hope helps you keep going and keep being you. Don't let anyone write your story for you again." She passed away 4 months later. When the lawyer read her will, everyone was expecting the usual. Split assets, trinkets, maybe a few heirlooms. But one line made every head in the room turn. To Kevin Thomas, the only one in this family who learned to stand alone. I leave my safe deposit box, its contents, and the full sum of my private savings account. Turns out Grandma had been quietly saving for decades. When the paperwork settled, the total came out to just under $380,000. The same day, I signed the inheritance paperwork. I wrote a check to fund a scholarship in her name, the Thomas Grant, for students who were told they weren't enough. And then I drove home. Not to my parents' house, but to my own. I walked out onto my balcony that night looking over the city lights. No banners, no speeches, just peace. And I realized I never needed their approval because I had my moment, and no one would ever take that from me. They called it betrayal. They called it drama. But all Kevin ever wanted was to be seen. He didn't just throw a party. He made history. They brought a lawyer. He brought the truth, and in the end, the only one who ever really saw him was the woman who left him $380,000 and one final message: don't let anyone write your story for you again. Subscribe to Whisper Wire, where voices like Kevin's echo forever.